Friday marked the end of the workday and work week for James. The weather forecast for the weekend promised beautiful weather despite the approaching end of summer. A massive project to renovate and modernize his parents' old house was finally completed. Surprisingly, James' wife was unaware of the grand changes he had made over the past year. She had always despised any work involving the land and had never crossed the threshold of his parents' house. The house had been practically torn down and rebuilt, and now had 2 stories, a beautiful fence around it, and a spacious garage. It was now a comfortable and convenient place to live. This transformation was the result of James' hard work and financial investment, of which his wife knew nothing. Passing by a shopping center, James took a decisive step and went inside. For an appetizer, he bought a bottle of excellent cognac, 3 kinds of hard cheese, olives, lightly salted salmon, and a baguette. With a cheerful mood, he returned home. In the living room, he found his wife dressed in an elegant robe and ironing a festive skirt. Greeting her enthusiastically, James said, "Hello, darling." She replied with a warm smile, "Hello, beloved." James asked curiously, "Are we going somewhere?" "No, I'm actually going with Brittany," replied the wife. Surprised, he asked, "What about me?" "That's what we need to discuss," she began. "Recently, the spark has been missing in our relationship, and we thought it would be helpful to compare experiences with other men. Brittany and I talked about it, and Derek offered some advice. We decided to have a double date tonight with Derek and his friend at the restaurant at the hotel. We plan to spend the whole night there." Confused, James replied, "Okay, I don't get it. You talked to Brittany and got advice from Derek? Who is Derek and how did he get to us?" "Derek is our new coworker. We work together in the same office," she explained. Trying to make sense of what was going on, he inquired, "Have you had a relationship with Derek?" "No, what are you thinking?" "There's nothing between us," she assured him. James continued, "What about his friend?" "I haven't met him yet," she admitted. Still pondering the situation, he expressed his emotions. "So you saw fit to let me know you were going on a date?" "Of course I am. This little adventure of mine will liven up our lives." "What about Brittany?" "Well, that's a good idea. What time are you 2 meeting?" "In an hour." "Then I still have time." "I see." James went into the bedroom, took out his suitcase, and began to pack his things. When he heard his wife ironing her skirt and humming some tune, he spoke. "Do you think the winter will be cold?" "Probably not, because of global warming." "Then a jacket will suffice. It's pretty warm, and I've only worn it for 1 season." "What are you doing?" "Packing." "Why?" "The apartment, if I remember correctly, belongs to you and is not subject to division in a divorce. As for the car, I'll give you half of its value. But considering you can't drive and don't have a license, that shouldn't be a problem. I won't touch our joint account, but I know how much money is in it. After the divorce, we'll split it in half, and I'll stop transferring money into it. I'll help the kids as much as I can. Fortunately, they're adults. I'll let them know I'm breaking up with you." "James, what are you doing?" "You're leaving me just because I want to diversify our life." "Lily, do you really believe that our life together can continue after you go on a date with another man? What's your point of view on that?" "James, it's called an open marriage. Let's sit down and talk about it." "I only have 10 minutes. 10 minutes until what?" "Until I leave. Tell me what you want to say. I've already packed everything I need. I'll leave the computer with you, but I'll take the laptop with me." "You can't do this to me. We've been together for years. We have grown children. Thank God the kids are grown, and you don't have to pay child support. Besides, why can you do it to me and I can't? Don't you understand the new trends?" "What new trends?" "Derek and his friend want to spend a couple nights with another woman, and what does his wife think? He told her he was going on a business trip. And why didn't he tell his wife he was following a new trend and talked 2 inappropriate women into cheating on their husbands? Why is it a mention to me that I'm going to spend the night with a man, but to his wife it's a business trip?" He noted that his wife was of a traditional mindset and did not understand things easily. What did Tamara tell her spouse? "Brittany should let her spouse know what I am sharing with you. James, you don't have to go anywhere. I'll be back Sunday afternoon. I will personally file a complaint with the court. I'll wait for you there. James closed his suitcase, headed into the hallway, and began to dress. Once dressed, he said, "You know, I am a simple man, content with what I have. Maybe I forgot something in my haste, but I don't need it anymore." James grabbed his belongings, including the bag of brandy and snacks he had left in the hallway when he got home. Lily was sobbing behind his back and screaming, "James, stay, I'm not leaving. I understand everything. Forgive me for my stupidity." Valentina's phone rang, and she tearfully answered it. "Hello," she said. "Lily, it's me, Brittany." "Lily, I've been attacked by Martin. I won't be able to walk to the restaurant, and I have nowhere to stay. I'm not going to the restaurant either. My husband left me." "James left. So can I come to you?" "Come." "I'm almost there. I have nowhere else to go." After a while, Brittany entered the apartment with a huge bruise on her face and 2 suitcases. James called Martin from the car. "Martin, hi, how are you?" "James, did Brittany ask you to call?" "No, I even saw her." "What makes you think that?" "Do you know what she told me?" "Let me guess. The same thing she told me, right?" "What did yours say?" "She's going on a date with a coworker tonight, and they're planning to stay at a hotel. He's booked a room there." Well, mine said the same thing." I listened intently. I recognized all the details. Who would have thought this would take our relationship to the next level? While she was in the bathroom, I packed her things, and when she came out, I told her she had 5 minutes to leave my apartment and never come back. And she left, didn't she? She started to fight back, claiming that I didn't understand anything and that it was just a new trend. Eventually, I lost my temper and punched her in the eye. I threw her out into the hallway along with my stuff. Fortunately or not, my apartment belongs to Lily. I packed up and left. What are you doing now? Heading to the restaurant where those suitors made reservations. I saw that jerk when I went to see Brittany at work. I'm going to explain to him that it's not okay to flirt with married women. Where are you now? Not far. Wait, I'm coming too. 15 minutes later, James and Martin met at the hotel. The restaurant was not far away. Another 5 minutes passed before Martin spotted Derek and his friend coming out of the elevator, presumably after checking into a room. They headed towards the restaurant, passing the reception area and disappearing from the view of the webcams. It was there that James and Martin intercepted them. James, stopping a short distance away from Derek, asked, "Are you Derek?" Derek smugly replied, "Yes, I am." Immediately, Derek was punched in the jaw and collapsed to the floor. His friend tried to say something, but did not have time. A few moments later, he too was on the floor. James and Martin discreetly left through an inconspicuous emergency exit. After leaving the restaurant, James went to his newly renovated house, and Martin accompanied him. Without realizing it, Derek and his friend Todd got themselves into quite a bit of trouble over their encounter. They were caught by the police at the restaurant and thought they were the organizers of the fight. After identifying Derek and Todd, a police officer was instructed to go to their registration address and interview the housemates. Derek's wife Susan believed that he was on a business trip and was staying with his girlfriend Sarah, who turned out to be Todd's wife. Coincidentally, Todd was also on a business trip. It was at this time that a police officer came to Sarah's home. Not knowing all the details of what had happened, the police officer asked Sarah, "What happened to my husband?" "Your husband and his friend Derek were sitting with their partners in a restaurant. There they got into a fight with another group of people, which led to a big scuffle. I apologize for the confusion, but my husband is currently on a business trip in a neighboring city. The restaurant in question is actually in our city and not far from your house. There must be a mistake. He called me just an hour ago. I'm not sure of the details. The police have instructed me to gather information about your husband, and I need to speak to the wife of the second detainee named Derek, whose name is Susan. I'm sorry, but I don't have that information." The 2 wives ended up at the police station. Susan joined the conversation and addressed the police officer. "I realized that the second detainee's name is Derek, and he is my husband. He went on a business trip to another city. I don't see the point in questioning us. Susan and Sarah were sitting in the investigator's office, trying to find out as much as possible about what had happened. James and Martin sat at the table in the newly renovated family home that James had inherited after his parents died. Martin admired the work James had done on the house and commented, "Why do you need an apartment? You have such a beautiful house. You can live here even in winter. Come on, sit down. I've been getting ready to drink all day today." And then Lily brings up the idea of an open marriage. Martin asked, "What do you suggest we do?" James replied, "I'm sorry, Martin, but I think everyone should make their own decision. If you give me advice and it turns out to be wrong, who will be to blame?" Martin agreed, "You're right. Pour me a drink." Good advice, but I've already come to that conclusion myself. James poured the cognac and the friends drank, clinking their glasses. Martin noticed something and said, "What a good cognac. How do you choose it?" "Well, I have a friend who works at a distillery, so he always recommends good varieties. Right now they have an inexpensive Hennessy, which he recommended." "Oh, I should have bought it then." "Actually, he didn't recommend it. He said it's bottled outside our town. So what are your plans with your wife?" "I don't know yet." "What about you?" "I'll probably get a divorce. She wanted an open marriage, so she's gonna have one. I'll get a divorce too. I'll talk to the kids about it tomorrow." At this point, the investigator who had been interviewing Derek and Todd instructed a subordinate to bring Lily and Brittany to him. Unfortunately, Derek had lost his cell phone, which contained important information about Lily. Not knowing their address, the case detective contacted the head of human resources at Derek's place of employment. Using his memory, he gave the address and arrived there 15 minutes later. Upon entering the apartment, the officer found the drunken mistress and her friend, both crying. One of them had a noticeable black eye. Suspecting that they had been involved in a fight at the restaurant, he took them to the police station for clarification. When they arrived, Sarah and Susan were already at the station. A heated argument broke out, which turned into a serious fight. The officers on duty had to intervene to separate the women. As a result, Lily received a black eye and Brittany received a bruise. Derek and Todd, on the other hand, were not involved in the fight, as they were in their cells. They were informed about the incident by their wives from a neighboring cell, so they were in no hurry to come out. It turned out that this was not their first business trip together. Derek had previously been fired from his job due to allegations of harassment of married women, which did not please the director. During further questioning, the investigator determined the roles of Lily and Brittany and realized that they never made it to the restaurant, thus excluding them from the fight. The restaurant administrator, who was also questioned, confidently stated, "As I recall, these young people were sitting at a table in the company of other people when a fight suddenly broke out. Surprisingly, they actively participated in the altercation and even left the restaurant without paying the bill, resulting in broken dishes. They need to reimburse the dinner and damages to avoid claims from the management." The charges against Derek and Todd were classified as disorderly conduct, and their wives were not prosecuted for participating in the commotion at the police station. Lily and Brittany were released before they were, and the girlfriends decided to celebrate their divorces by visiting Sarah, who had a bottle of good wine. Sarah spoke candidly to her friends about her thoughts. "I've wanted to leave Todd for a long time, but I didn't know how. I'm tired of neglect and long for true love. And he, as you can see, is partial to other women, even older than himself." Agreeing with her, Sarah replied, "Yes, our husbands certainly have a taste for antique mistresses." By the way, the investigator said they will be sentenced to 15 days each. "That's just fantastic." Confused, Lily asked, "What do you mean?" Valentina explained, "I can use this opportunity to collect all his belongings and empty his bank account." Curious, Lily inquired about the fate of Todd's belongings. Sarah replied, "I will send them to my mother-in-law who has her own house in the suburbs. I'll hire a company to move everything." Brittany replied, "I'll do the same. But keep in mind, my parents live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a 5-story building. There's plenty of room for him there. Well, now our husbands will spend 15 days together. What do you think of them? Focus on yourself. Lily dismissively replied, "I have no need to think about them. I've long been courted by a charming man who claims to regret that I'm married. I have no intention of passing up such an opportunity. And to be honest, I'm in no hurry. My husband is enough for me." Meanwhile, Lily and Brittany sat at the table in Lily's apartment and examined their bruises in pocket mirrors. Lily, after assessing her bruise, expressed relief. "I guess I'm lucky. But how will you go to work? Do you have potatoes?" "Of course I have potatoes." "Great, I need a bruise remedy." "Do you have any drugstore remedies?" Lily rummaged through the home medicine cabinet and found a tube of bruise gel. They read the instructions carefully and applied it to the bruised area. Brittany looked at herself in the mirror and her appearance was comical. She said, "If the bruises don't go away by Monday, I'm not going to work." "What are you talking about? All three of us are gonna get fired. We don't even know if Direct's gonna show up. And if we don't show up, it'll be even worse." "What would happen then?" "Imagine if the workplace found out what happened. We'd be ashamed. What do we do to get our husband back?" "I don't know. My husband is very stubborn. He's already given up on me." "At least yours doesn't swear. But that doesn't mean it's gonna be easy to get him back." Derek and Todd were taken to a holding cell overnight. The next day, the judge sentenced them to 15 days of administrative arrest. Shocked by this decision, they tried to protest. But no one listened to them, and they were taken back to serve their sentence. During the conversation, Todd said to Derek, "Look, we've been through this before. Last time you lost your job. Why are you doing this again?" I figured they would buy it, especially since they complain all the time about their husbands not loving and appreciating them. So I made up a story about having an open marriage. They were so interested, and they believed it. Who were the men who met us at the restaurant? I'm not sure. I remember seeing something somewhere, but it's not clear where these guys came from and why they attacked us. I think the men fought them, but I couldn't make sense of the whole catastrophe. I only came to my senses when we were apprehended by the police. I thought they would protect us. And did they? Yes, but my ribs still hurt. 15 days to go. In the morning, James was awakened by a persistent phone call. He realized from the melody that it was his daughter. He reached for the receiver and answered. "Daughter, what's wrong?" "Daddy, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Mom called me. She's crying. She said you got jealous and left her. And now you're talking about divorcing her." "Oh, that makes sense. I'm still half asleep and you're already accusing me. Did Mom tell you everything? Or did she just give you a rough idea? What are we talking about? Did she tell you about this new idea to strengthen the marriage?" "What new idea?" "She called it open marriage. You've heard of it." "No, I haven't." "Did you come up with it?" "Did I come up with that? It's when a husband and wife are still married but can have other partners for a night or two." "Dad, are you having an affair? And you think that's gonna strengthen your marriage?" "Good for you, daughter. You got it right. But it's actually the opposite. Yesterday, Mom told me that her and her friend Brittany were invited to a restaurant by their new colleague and his friend. Well, let them go. Just listen to me first and then draw conclusions and share your thoughts." "Okay, I'm listening." After having dinner at the restaurant, they will head to the hotel where Derek has booked 2 rooms. She has to return home on Sunday, as she believes it will bring variety to their marriage and strengthen their bond. Do you think she's stupid? I can't say. Why don't you ask her? If I said that to my husband, he'd probably punch me in the eye and kick me out of the house. Well, I'm not much for fighting, so instead I packed my things and left. Interestingly enough, the apartment we live in now belonged to my wife before we got married. Then who attacked her and Aunt Brittany? Who attacked them? I don't know. Maybe it was Martin when he kicked Brittany out of the house, but he could only have attacked Brittany. Besides, he was with me all night, and now he's sleeping in the next room. According to her, the police came and took them to the station. I don't know anything about that. I don't have any information either. I'll be at my mom's soon, and I'll find out and call you back. Yeah, also check with her about the concept of open marriage and how it supposedly strengthens the family. These new trends are quite intriguing. Dad, that's incredible. Just wait for my call. After finishing his conversation with his daughter, James came to the conclusion that he wasn't going to be able to fall asleep anyway. He decided to get up and make breakfast while his guest was still asleep. However, to his surprise, Martin was already awake and sitting in the kitchen, watching the local news on TV. Noticing James, Martin spoke up. "You know, the news reports that there was a big fight in the restaurant we visited yesterday. 2 people have been detained." "And who was detained?" "They didn't report it, as usual. They were employees of a local business. But that's not the most interesting part. Tell me who called you." "My daughter, Kimberly." "And what did she want?" "It turns out that it wasn't my wife who suggested the idea of an open marriage, but me. And apparently, I have a mistress. What's more, both yours and mine were involved in an altercation with the police yesterday." "Did they go on a date and get drunk?" "I don't know exactly, but I explained everything to Kimberly and she promised to call me back. Will you have breakfast with me?" "I can, but first I need to make a quick trip to the store." "Come on, but don't bring any alcohol with you." Martin hurriedly got dressed and went to the store. Meanwhile, James was preparing breakfast and decided to call his son back. He dialed his number and Vincent answered. "Hi, Dad. I was just about to call you. What's going on over there?" "Mom wants to get into an open marriage," James replied. "How? What do you mean?" asked Vincent. "It's simple. She sleeps with her lover, and I stay in bed with the Horns," explained James. "Come on, Dad. If you're going to sleep with Horns, you're going to need a special pillow," joked Vincent. "Well, I figured it would be best if I left," said James. "Kimberly told me you left your mom. I thought you did it voluntarily. I didn't think it was that serious. You're adults. You'll figure it out." "So who did she find?" inquired Vincent. "She found a boy a little older than you," replied James. "Have you seen him?" "Only a glimpse. We didn't even have time to talk." "I didn't have time," James replied. "And what are you going to do?" asked Vincent. "What would you do if your wife told you she was going to spend the night at a friend's house tonight and tomorrow learning this new trend?" asked James. "I wouldn't do anything. I'd pack up her things and be done with it. This whole open marriage nonsense is only for perverts. Dad, I'm not here to judge. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. But I'm not leaving Mom either," Vincent said firmly. "I'm not asking you to leave Mom. I just want you to understand my pain," James pleaded. "Do you think it was easy for me to hear her say that yesterday?" "Dad, do you need me now?" asked Vincent sincerely. "Thank you, son, but I'm not alone. Martin is with me," replied James. "I wonder who Martin is." Vincent wondered aloud. "It's a friend who ran into the store to pick me up," explained James. "Please don't drink too much," Vincent warned. "Today is Saturday, and tomorrow is a day off. I remember about that. Everything will be fine," James assured him. "Hang in there, Dad," encouraged Vincent. Martin returned from the store with 3 bottles of cognac. "Martin, are you out of your mind? Where are you going?" exclaimed James. "James, let's have some cognac and beer. We are free people. Today and tomorrow are off," suggested Martin enthusiastically. "That's a great way to get intoxicated." "Too bad. I had plans for today and tomorrow, but everything went wrong." "What happened in my absence?" "My son called. I told him everything, and he's on my side." "Have your children contacted you?" "Not yet. I think we should have a drink, and then I'll call them personally so they don't think their father's a home wrecker." "Let's do that. You call first, and then we'll have a drink. Don't tell me you have a headache. We drank a lot last night." At that moment, James' daughter called again. "Oh, Daddy, there's a whole detective story unfolding." "What is it?" "Yesterday, after you left, Aunt Brittany came over. They were upset, sat down at the table and drank." "What did they drink?" "The absinthe you brought back from the Czech Republic. They said they drank it too." "Absinthe. I was saving it for a special occasion." "You drank it? It's 70% alcohol. They'll hallucinate when it gets to them." "Dad, I don't think they were hallucinating. A policeman came and invited them to the station, and these drunken fools agreed. In the interrogation room, their angry partners were waiting for them. They had a big fight in the restaurant. Then their wives arrived, realized who Mom and Brittany were, and attacked them. The police had to step in and break them up. They deserved it. Did you ask them about the open marriage? Yes. They both burst into tears and admitted they'd fallen for the lies of Derek, their colleague. Well, whose fault was that? Me. It's not your fault. Mom understands and apologizes. No, daughter. There's no going back from here. Okay, just take some time to cool down and think it over. Have a drink. It might help. What would you do if your husband told you about an open marriage and confronted your girlfriend? I'd kick him out on the street. And you wouldn't forgive him? What would you advise me to do? Dad, you lived with Mom for so long. That's what hurts me the most. Do you really think I left on a whim? I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know what to do. James finished talking, hung up the phone and sighed. He reached for the bottle of cognac Martin had brought and poured himself a shot. Taking a sip, he commented, "It's not bad cognac, it's not fake." Martin looked at him and replied, "Why didn't you pour me a shot?" James raised an eyebrow and asked, "Have you called your kids yet? Or are you planning on hiding everything from them?" Martin picked up his cell phone, turned it on, and noticed that he had several missed calls from his wife and children. After pondering the situation, he said to James, "Looks like my kids already know everything from my wife's account. I should call them back." Martin continued the conversation with his sons, while Brittany refrained from giving details, including the fact that she planned to stay in a hotel after the restaurant. The eldest son assured his father, "Dad, don't worry. I'll take care of Derek." Martin, concerned, replied, "Son, you don't need to get involved. They might put you in jail. We have already confronted them, and there was even a fight in the restaurant." The second son also expressed a desire to meet Derek and talk to him. Martin had a hard time convincing him otherwise and asked him to restrain his brother. James, who was present during the conversation, remarked, "If two middleweight boxing masters meet with Derek, they will beat him to a pulp." Martin defended himself by saying, "Is it my fault my sons are taking after me? I am still a candidate master of sports, and they have already fulfilled the norms." So James and Martin spent the weekend around the table reflecting on their situation. On Sunday evening, Martin returned home and began to prepare for the next day. At first, he had planned to wear a suit, but changed his mind and opted for jeans and a denim shirt since it was warm enough in the office. He shaved thoroughly and relaxed a bit in the bathroom. James, meanwhile, busied himself with getting ready for work after Martin's departure. Monday morning, Lily and Brittany woke up early and began hiding their bruises in front of the mirror. Brittany suddenly had an idea and exclaimed, "Oh, Brittany, what if their wives came to work with us? Can you imagine what a scandal would break out? They're not afraid of any consequences at the militia. What shall we do?" Brittany reassured her, "We'll tell them not to let anyone come to us, especially since our clients don't usually visit our office, and let Derek deal with his wife himself." They finished their makeup, exchanged glances, and were satisfied. 40 minutes later, they pulled up to their workplace, but found Derek gone. Brittany and Lily settled behind their workstations and busied themselves with paperwork. Around 11 o'clock, the human resources manager walked in and inquired about Derek's whereabouts. "We don't know. He may have been detained," they answered him. The HR staff left, but returned 40 minutes later with a more direct question. "Would you girls like to share something about Friday?" "What happened?" they asked. "That's what I'd like to know." Derek was sentenced to 15 days. I got word from the police. According to his wife, he claimed to be on a business trip on Friday, but instead went to a hotel restaurant with two older women and a friend. They rented 2 hotel rooms for 2 days. First, he was not actually on a business trip. Second, they engaged in debauchery in the restaurant, for which they were jailed for 15 days. What's going to happen to him now? Will he be fired? They asked worriedly. Why? No, he won't be fired. An administrative charge is involuntary absenteeism, so we don't have the authority to terminate his employment. However, we will record it as involuntary absenteeism. Since he can't perform his duties, there's no reason to pay his salary. So after he works for 24 hours, he'll come back?" they asked, looking for confirmation. "I can't say for sure. It will depend on how the director looks at it. I think he'll probably be offered a voluntary resignation, especially since his wife claims he has nowhere to go and refuses to let him come home. Do either of you have anything to add?" "What can we say?" they replied helplessly. "I was just wondering who the older women were that direct charmed. You both work in the same office. It wasn't one of you, was it?" "No, it was us. But we didn't go to the restaurant and we don't know what went on there. Later we were taken to the police station, but Derek and his friend were already in a cell. Their wives even showed up at the station." "Whose wives?" they inquired. "Derek's wife and his friend's wife. They're the ones who attacked us." "And what did your husbands say about it?" "When we told them about the concept of open marriage, they decided to leave us. And now we are at a loss as to what to do." "Oh my God. Brittany, Lily, why did you give in to such deception? Derek has been feeding you lies for the last 6 months. What open marriage? It was all made up by a group of crooks. I don't even know how to help you in this situation." James and Martin met by chance in the lawyer's office at the law clinic. They were waiting for an appointment when Susan and Sarah walked in and got in line behind them. They got to talking and found out that they had all been victimized by the same people: Derek, his friend Todd, Lily, and Brittany. Susan mentioned that her husband Derek and his friend were currently serving a 15-day sentence for causing a disturbance. Eventually, their meetings began. James and Martin walked in together and explained the reason for their visit. The lawyer listened to them both carefully and discussed the matter of payment. They agreed to meet at the courthouse the next day to file a statement of claim. By that time, the attorney needed to prepare the statement of claim, and they needed to pay the attorney's fees and the court fee for filing the divorce action in court. And so the divorce process began. It is worth noting that Lily and Brittany made every effort to ensure that the divorce did not take place. Since one of the spouses did not consent to the dissolution of the marriage, the court took measures to reconcile them and postponed the proceedings for 3 months. After serving his administrative sentence, Derek returned to work and visited the Human Resources Department. He presented his arrest certificate and immediately wrote a letter of resignation. He then went to his department where he insulted Lily and Brittany, gathered his belongings, returned to the HR department for his employment history, and left. On the same day, he left the city and went to his parents. Derek failed to appear in court for the first hearing, causing the judge to reschedule the hearing and send him a second notice. The second time, the divorce case was heard without the defendant. The judge considered that Nikita was duly notified of the date and place of the hearing, but did not inform the court of the valid reasons for his absence. As a result, the decision was made to grant Susan's divorce claim. Sarah divorced despite her husband's half-joking attempts to resist the divorce. In court, he blamed it on Derek and denied knowing any other women. He also denied ever going to the restaurant. Sarah, spurred on by his lies about the business trip and repeated incidents in the hotel room, stood her ground. However, the decision to divorce was made after 3 months of attempts at reconciliation. During this time, Sarah developed a serious relationship with a single coworker who proposed to her after learning of the breakup of her marriage. Meanwhile, both James and Martin avoided communicating with their wives and dodged meetings. Brittany and Lily, feeling the need to involve their children in the situation, who had previously kept to themselves and trusted their parents to handle matters, began to seek reconciliation. Their main argument was that there was no physical affair, and they insisted that their intentions for the evening were simply to enjoy music and dancing in the restaurant. One day, James' daughter, Kimberly, called him and invited him to her birthday celebration. Remembering the date, he inquired about his ex-wife's presence. Kimberly was honest and confirmed that her mother would be in attendance, but encouraged her father to talk without involving attorneys. She acknowledged the pain and suffering that James had endured and believed that her mother had been through enough to realize the consequences of her actions. Fearing a possible scene at the birthday party, James hesitated, but Kimberly insisted that they should just sit down and talk without making a scene. She also suggested that Martin and Brittany have a similar conversation, preferably on neutral territory. Kimberly even suggested finding a suitable place where they could all meet and discuss the situation face to face. James admitted that he couldn't make the decision for Martin and promised to talk to him about it. Kimberly emphasized the importance of his decision and asked him to let her know first. The next day, Kimberly called again with a suggestion. They could meet at a downtown cafe with tables for two. James agreed and asked about a time to meet. Kimberly informed him that his mom would be waiting for him at 6:15 p.m. near where he worked. She also asked if she could order something for him. However, James declined, insisting on ordering and paying for himself. Kimberly then asked about Martin and whether James had spoken to him. He confirmed that he had informed Martin, but he hadn't received a response yet. He assured Kimberly that he would contact him soon. James called Martin and asked, "Well, have you made a decision about the meeting?" Martin replied, "Is it serious?" "Yeah, the court is running out of time for reconciliation, so they're in a hurry," James explained. "And where will the meeting take place?" "It will be in the center in a cafe. They've reserved 2 tables for 2 people. The meeting is at 18:15 after work." "It's not too far from us," Martin replied. "It's pretty far for me to get home," James remarked. "But it's close for them," Martin remarked. "What do you plan to decide?" "I think we should formalize the divorce first, and then maybe I'll let her live with me in the apartment, but only in separate rooms. After all, she has completely lost trust in me. Today it's easier for me to be alone. Besides, I wonder if she cheated on me before. She just lost her fear and decided to speak openly about it," Martin admitted. "I have also looked into my past life with Lily, but I don't have any suspicions. Maybe I trusted her too much? Well, what do you think? Will you come with me to the meeting?" James inquired. "Okay, let's meet," agreed Martin. At 6:10 p.m., James and Martin entered the cafe. As they looked around, they noticed James' wife, Lily, sitting at a table in the corner. She looked distraught, her face showing signs of weight loss. Obviously, sleepless nights and a general sense of anxiety were causing her anxiety. James felt sorry for his wife, but he restrained his emotions and greeted her. "Good evening." "Hello, James. How are you?" "You are still the same. You haven't changed," replied Lily. A waiter approached and James handed the menu to Lily. She chose a dish, and James placed his order separately. The waiter checked with James, asking, "Would you like to split the bill?" "No, that won't be necessary. I'll pay for everything," James replied. The waiter left and James and Lily sat in silence. They were silent for a long time, until the ordered dishes were brought. Finally, Lily broke the silence by remarking, "You didn't even order yourself a beer. You know I don't drink alcohol for a week. And frankly, I'm not really inclined toward alcoholic beverages. Was there something else you wanted to say?" James replied, "Yes, I did, but I've already said it all, and you've heard it all. Brittany and I are well aware of the mess we have made and the pain we have caused you. I don't believe you could forgive me for that, and even if you came back, there would still be a significant gap between us. I have lost your trust, which was the foundation of our love. I am ashamed in front of my children because of my own stupidity. Even though I can see that my children are genuinely trying to support me, they are still on your side. And I can't say anything. They are right. Kimberly has informed me that you do not want to attend her birthday party if I am there. She suggested that I meet with you today to settle the matter. So you didn't initiate this meeting?" "No, I thought about it, but all my attempts were rebuffed by you, which obviously annoyed you. I decided not to pursue it further. Although I can't admit it, I'm having a hard time on my own. I don't want to ruin our daughter's birthday party, and I want you to be there, so I won't be there. I don't want to ruin the celebration. I thought, why would we hurt our daughter's feelings? We can come together and be respectful. I've already bought a gift for our daughter from both of us. I'll give you money for it. Please don't. I don't want to be financially dependent, so let's make a gift together. I bought her a beautiful gold chain with a pendant. We celebrated our daughter's birthday at a restaurant. There were many guests, including Martin and Brittany. Unfortunately, during the meeting in the cafe, none of them managed to agree. Men in general turned out to be irreconcilable. However, at Kimberly's birthday party, they sat next to their wives, raising their glasses in a friendly manner. They even danced with other women and danced with their wives several times. As the evening drew to a close, James and Martin slipped away discreetly without saying goodbye. Later it became known that they took a cab and left in an unknown direction. They spent the weekend at James's house. Finally, James asked Martin, "What do you plan to do next with Brittany?" "I'm thinking about getting a divorce and possibly living with someone else, unmarried, so that I don't have any obligations to my spouse. Even after all the years we've lived together, you still haven't informed me of the agreement you made at the coffee shop." I've already explained it to her, even though she doesn't want a divorce. What if she doesn't want to live like that? If she doesn't want to live like that, she doesn't have to. I'm used to making my own decisions and not relying on anyone, except you, of course. The time came, and they appeared in court. James and Lily's divorce case was heard first. James' lawyer wanted to file a property dispute to delay the divorce. However, Lily firmly told him to stop, pleaded guilty, and agreed to James' request for a divorce. Martin's lawsuit followed, which ended in a similar fashion. As they walked out of the courtroom together, Brittany said, "Congratulations, you're both finally free." "Don't be like that, Brittany. It was our own fault." "James, I'm sorry," Lily replied. "Yes, we are free now, but you didn't listen carefully to the judge. The decision will come into force only after the expiration of the appeal period, which is 30 days from the date of announcement of the verdict. The judgment does not formalize the divorce instantly," James explained. "James, since the court decision affects both of us, I suggest we all go out together to celebrate the day at the cafe." "Girls, what do you say?" suggested Martin. After discussing Martin's suggestion, Brittany and Lily agreed, and everyone headed to the nearest cafe, which happened to be in a nearby hotel. Epilogue. 3 years passed. James and Lily lived in Lily's apartment, surrounded by the uneasy relationship of former spouses. Remarkably, however, James was never in control of Lily. One day, Lily expressed her concern by asking, "You do not pay attention to me, although we live together. Aren't you afraid I'll find someone else?" James replied firmly, drawing on his past experience, "We've already dealt with this issue. I don't even need to divorce you. If I find another person in your life, I will pack my things and leave, and it will be a permanent departure. Please refrain from such jokes." Another couple, Martin and Brittany, decided to move in together. However, Brittany never asked her husband about his reaction if he found out she was seeing someone else. She was aware of his position. After her divorce from Direct, Susan lived alone for some time. At her friend Sarah's wedding, she met a young executive who was celebrating his birthday in a neighboring section of the restaurant. They began dating, and soon he proposed to Susan. Immediately after her divorce from Todd, Sarah began a relationship with a coworker. As soon as the decision to divorce was made, he proposed to her. Although Todd tried to intervene and prevent their marriage, Sarah stood firm and rejected his advances.